What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the very first video that you are seeing on the channel that isn't an episode of the podcast. If this is your first time watching, my name is Jake, and I am one of the three co-hosts of the Run the North podcast on the channel that you are watching currently. So if you like what you see here, go ahead and check out our other videos because we have 7 or 8 episodes up of the podcast. We've been doing this thing for almost a year. We would love to have you join us on this journey, but today we are starting kind of a new thing where we kind of are going to get on here and do some long form type content in which we break down film for players, or we talk about things that are going on in the NFL or also other sports, because we are a sports podcast, not a sport podcast. So my hope is to also use this as an opportunity to break into other sports without having to take up a ton of our episodes with those things while the NFL is going on. So today we are talking about the Russell Wilson trade, specifically what each team got out of the Russell Wilson trade, how that's worked out, and kind of updating you guys on the current situation, and giving my thoughts on the current situation, especially with some new news that has broken over this past week. But before I get into all of that, if you would consider liking, subscribing, commenting, doing everything you can to help grow the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Right, first, like I said, we're going to hop in talking about what the Seahawks actually got out of this trade for their, at the time, star QB. First of all, Drew Lock. That's an A+. You guys know that in my book. That is an A+. Obviously, in reality, it doesn't mean much for them. I mean, obviously, before Geno became what Geno is now, Drew Lock was seriously considered to be Seattle's starter. I mean, he was right in the thick of it with Geno. It was one of the QB battles that was announced later. I mean, they kind of went for a lot of the offseason without really knowing who their guy was going to be. And so Drew Lock was seriously in consideration to actually be their starter. And I'm sure that's why he was part of the trade in the first place. I think that Seattle was genuinely considering him being their guy for at least the season after the trade. And honestly, it wasn't the worst idea in the world. I'm a big Drew Lock fan. I think Drew Lock is talented. Whether or not you like Drew Lock, I think you can admit that there is talent there. Obviously, he wasn't used to his full potential. He wasn't maximized in Denver. Didn't really get his opportunity in Denver outside of the 1 year that he was able to start for them, in which he didn't play horribly. I mean, he is not the best quarterback in the world, but we saw against Philadelphia that the talent is there and the ability is there. He just needs to be a little bit better at decision making, needs to be a little bit better about his accuracy, everything. But in reality, at the time, this was a decent move, and this is a decent thing to add into the package for the Seahawks because he was a guy who genuinely had a chance to start for them. Obviously, he didn't. Geno became what he is, and has been playing super well for them, and played super well for them last year. Right after the trade, got them to the playoffs where the Broncos missed it. Noah Fant, another guy that they got as a part of the show. I'm giving this one a B. I don't know. I mean, he's been fine. B might even be a little generous. I mean, he's their starting tight end, and that's about all that he is. Obviously, Fant and Hawkinson were the two Iowa tight ends that came out of that draft class, and both were pretty highly touted prospects, I would say. Obviously, Hawkinson was the guy who everybody kind of liked more, but Fant was an intriguing guy coming out of Iowa, and he's been a productive pass catcher for them, and he hasn't been the worst thing in the world, so I gave this one a B. Shelby Harris, C+. I don't know much about Shelby Harris and his tenure with the Seahawks ever since this deal with the Broncos, but obviously, I gave it a C+, like I said. I don't think he's been great, but I don't think he's been terrible either. Seahawks fans totally sound off of me in the comments. I'm completely wrong about that, and he is terrible. But now we get into the draft picks. The 2022 first-round pick, they turned into Charles Cross. That's an A, maybe even an A+. Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, their rookie season was one of the best tackle duos in the entire NFL. And that is a very hard thing to do as rookie tackles, right? Rookie tackles do not normally come in and just be good right away. Tackle, like a cornerback on defense, is a very hard position to come in as a rookie and just immediately be good at. But both of them somehow did it. And we're specifically talking about Charles Cross here. They used this on this fantastic tackle out of Mississippi State, and he has been awesome for them. He's dealing with some injuries, but other than that, he has been everything they could have hoped he would have been out of a first-round tackle. He came in and he was good right away. Again, not something that is easy to do as a tackle, so you have to love what you've seen out of Charles Cross. 2022 second, which turned into Boye Mafe, who has also been pretty good this year. Boye Mafe has been a productive pass rusher for them, and that is something that you love to see out of a pick that you get in a trade. Like, you want to get productive people, especially if you're trading away a guy like Russ, who was the center of your franchise for years and years and years. You want to get people in return who are actually going to be productive for you, and Boye Mafe has been that. 2022 fifth, this is the first just horrible thing for the Seahawks, turning into Tyreek Smith, currently an Arizona Cardinal. Never really made it off the practice squad for Seattle. Got signed off their practice squad this season by the Cardinals. He's off of the team, probably on his way to being out of the league. I mean, it's 5th round pick. I mean, the chances of them actually turning that into something good, while not zero, were not very high. And so you can't really blame them for that. And you can't really say, oh, well, they ruined this 5th round pick, so the trade's bad. No. A 2023 first, Devon Witherspoon, in serious consideration for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He plays with a lot of hustle, plays with a lot of heart. The dude just loves to hit people. I mean, he's a great tackling corner. He's been good in coverage this year. He stepped in alongside Rick Woolen, who, again, like, is somebody who almost won Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. He was productive. He was good. And everybody was kind of saying he's cornerback 1 in Seattle. He might even be better than Sauce Gardner. This guy could be better than Sauce Gardner. He could be a top 10 cornerback, and here we are. Rick Woolen, barely even getting snaps for the Seahawks anymore. Obviously, he's getting some, but he's getting nowhere near the level of volume and snaps that he got as a rookie. And then, of course, you have Devon Witherspoon, who came in and maybe even is better than him at this point. And that's something that you love to see. And I think Devon Witherspoon is going to end up being a little bit more consistent down the road. It's a fantastic pick. We all questioned it at first, obviously. If you guys watched the live stream when we live streamed the draft, when Devon Witherspoon was picked at 5, I, myself at least, I don't really remember what Miller and Geek's reaction were, but I myself was just very confused and shocked because I loved Devon Witherspoon. He was my cornerback 1 in the class for a long time, but I had no way anticipated him going top 5. But that's been a good pick. And then in 2023 second, we should turn into Derek Hall, who's been not there yet. I mean, he's going to take a few years if he is going to develop. I can't really grade him yet. I don't know if I said this, but I gave Devon Witherspoon an A. Because I'm not sure an A+ is warranted quite yet, but I do really like him and what he's going to turn out to be. Actually, the Broncos got Russell Wilson in a 4th round pick, who they used on, I'm going to butcher this name, Ioma Uwazurike. F. I don't even know who that is. I couldn't find any stats on him. He is suspended currently indefinitely for violating the NFL's gambling policies. I do know that. And so Russell Wilson, I don't really know what to grade it, but honestly, he has not been terrible. And now let's get into his stats since the trade and talk about, is this worth it for the Broncos? Obviously, with the current situation, maybe not, but let's take a look at how he's produced since being a Denver Bronco. So Russell Wilson, since being a Denver Bronco, let's read off some stats here. 6,594 passing yards, 7,212 total yards, okay? 42 passing touchdowns, 48 total touchdowns, an average of 44.65 QBR, 19 interceptions, 5 fumbles, 1 lost. Obviously, those stats do not necessarily jump off the page. And if you've watched Russell Wilson for the past 2 seasons in Denver, not much of his play has jumped off the screen either. 42 passing touchdowns in his time as a Denver Bronco. His best season passing touchdown-wise in Seattle was 40. So in a season and a half of being the starter for the Denver Broncos, he has just barely surpassed his best season total as a passer. It was just crazy. Obviously, he's 48 total touchdowns, got the 6 rushing touchdowns added in there. That's a little bit better, but just 42 passing touchdowns in a season and a half. He did that in 1 season with Seattle. These stats, like I said, they don't jump off the page. And last year was abysmal in every single sense of the word for the Denver Broncos. Absolutely abysmal. Nathaniel Hackett, I loved him as an OC in Green Bay. I thought he was doing a good job. We've seen this year that might have been more Matt LaFleur, but I liked what Hackett was doing as an OC. I don't like what he's doing as an OC in New York. So maybe he's just not a good coach in general, but he was a terrible head coach, one of the worst head coaching jobs we have ever seen. I think that even though Sean Payton came in and talked all this smack, and you can be like, oh, Sean Payton sucks for that, you gotta admit he kind of has a point, because Nathaniel Hackett absolutely botched this coaching job, and he botched Russell Wilson. Obviously, the first season, I don't have his season splits, so I don't really know how the first season went stats-wise, but we know it was terrible because he has 26 passing touchdowns. He only has 16 last season, right? So he's already beaten his full season total from last year by 10. right? So obviously there's been improvement. So let's talk about this year, what we've seen from Russell Wilson. We have seen good things from Russell Wilson. He's been playing good ball. This is the first time since leaving Seattle they've seen him play meaningful football down the stretch here. He started off really terribly. The defense was bad. The offense was not cooking like it hadn't been under Hackett the entire time. They got beat by 50 to the Dolphins, and everything kind of looked like it was hopeless. Everything looked like it was completely over for them already. Everybody was clowning, Peyton for coming in and talking all the smack and just doing the exact same thing that Hackett did from an offensive and from a record standpoint. Everybody was talking about that. Everybody was calling Russ for just not getting better. And then they come in and they become one of the hottest teams in football. The offense is rolling. The defense under Vance Joseph finally starts to show some life. They are one of the best defenses in the NFL. They play like a top 5 defense for weeks, and they got some quality wins, and they looked like they were actually on their way to the playoffs. And then we come to Christmas Eve, where they finally kind of fall short. I mean, they beat the Chiefs. Everything was looking okay. And then we get to Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve, they get beat by the 3-win Patriots, who are in contention for even the number 1 overall pick because the Panthers had won a game. And they get beat by them, and it's over. Their playoff chances dropped to 1.3%, and it is over. And then, just this past week, we get some news. Let's talk about it. If you're a sports fan who's been living under a rock, you might not know that Russell Wilson's been benched for the rest of the season, right? So the Broncos decided that they're going to bench Russell Wilson. That's one of the first pieces to fall. Is on Twitter, somebody puts out Russell Wilson is going to be benched for financial reasons, not to risk injury so the money isn't guaranteed. That was like the first story that came out, was that the Broncos were going to bench Russell Wilson in order to keep him healthy so his money wouldn't be guaranteed, which with a 1.3% playoff chance is sort of smart as an organization. If it's purely from a financial standpoint. If we don't want to guarantee you money, if we want to get out of this contract that we had you sign, this pretty terrible contract we had you sign, let's just not play you. You don't get hurt. You pass your physical. The money isn't guaranteed, right? They don't want to guarantee him money. That was the first story that broke, okay? And then it talks a little bit more. We go on a little bit farther, and Russ says, hey, they actually came to me way earlier in the season, like 2 months ago, and they said, if you don't revise your contract so that we don't have to bench you later for financial reasons, we're going to bench you anyway, and you're going to get cut. And Russ didn't do it. Obviously, he didn't do it. Now he's benched, and now news came out also this past week that he's going to be cut in May. He will not be the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Okay. It has been clear since the day he stepped into the building, Sean Payton did not like Russ. He didn't want Russ. He came in, and not only did he slash Nathaniel Hackett, he came in and he destroyed Russell Wilson, destroyed him for having his own office in the building, which may be kind of valid. Talked about all this stuff about last year, including him in all these conversations. He never wanted Russell Wilson. Okay, I guarantee you the plan for Sean Payton was always to just suffer through this 1 year, get through it, cut Russ, get his own guy. That I guarantee you that was the plan for Sean Payton. Okay, and that is from an organizational standpoint just messed up. For 2 months, Russell Wilson knew about this, and yet he did not throw the Broncos season away. He played, like I said in the beginning of the video, meaningful football for them this season. Meaningful football for those 2 months. If I was Russ and I knew what I knew now, what he knows now, and Sean Payton got in my face a couple weeks back and did what he did and screamed at me for something that he caused initially, I would have lost it. And I respect Russ for not losing in that moment. All that being said, to give my take, I don't think this is a good decision by the Broncos. I don't think that you're going to find somebody who can play at the level Russ is playing and keep your team at the level they're playing right away. I think Russ is the guy, your best option, free agency, trade, drafts, whatever. It's your best option to utilize what you have on your roster. They are right now, or they were at least before the Patriots lost. They were a team competing for the playoffs. The defense was there. The offense with Judy and Sutton was there. And not to mention, they've been missing Tim Patrick, who's also been a productive receiver for them in the past. that's been good. And obviously the Broncos can't really run the football, and Javonte Williams isn't what we really thought he was. But still, you have to understand that, like, this is a team that's competing for the playoffs. I don't think anybody you get in free agency or a trade for next year, or even in the draft, is going to come in and be able to manage this roster and manage the game with this team and drive this bus the way Russell Wilson has been able to this season. He's been playing a lot better ball. He's shown excellent improvement. Whether or not it's enough to keep him, he's shown improvement in Denver. Okay. The second he gets a real head coach, he showed improvement. I think he should be given another shot for that. Obviously, he won't. He won't be the Broncos starting quarterback next year. And now that we've reviewed all this, that is the end of the Russell Wilson saga in Denver. Sad days in the NFL, as Russell Wilson will be finding a new team. Patriots, I think, are a team that actually might go after him. We're seeing reports about that. The Giants are a team that I can see going after him, having a veteran presence there, especially because he can probably start over Daniel Jones right now. But overall, I disagree with what the Broncos are doing. I think this whole situation is messed up. I feel for Russ. I don't really hate Russ. I think Russ is a good guy, and Russ has done a good job of keeping his composure and still playing meaningful football, despite the fact that he knows that his time in Denver was probably going to be up after this season. We knew that Sean Payton was already ready to boot him out the second he got in there. We kind of figured this was going to happen. He wants his own guy, and honestly, I disagree with him for that. I think that with the way Russell Wilson has played, he's earned another shot next year, especially with the improvement we've already seen him show in Denver as he gets more comfortable with the team and with the system with Sean Payton. So that's my take. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this new long-form content that we're going to be releasing outside of the podcast episodes. Without further ado, we'll see you next time.